Welcome back to another episode of Quick Chat. Today we have with us Lottie Dowling, who will be working with our school on a big project.
Very big, very exciting.
Right, Lottie, can you tell us a bit about yourself?
Yeah, great. Thanks for having me. I'm a New Zealander, I'm a Kiwi, but I live in Melbourne, Australia. And I started off teaching years ago in primary schools, and I've lived and worked all over the world.
Oh, wow.
I spent almost 10 years working in China, in Beijing.
What's that like?
Oh, so interesting. China is such a big, complex, diverse place, and the food is amazing. I'm sorry, I always have to think about the food. So it was great. I had an amazing time in China. And then I moved down to Australia, to Melbourne.
That's lovely.
Yeah, I've been pretty lucky to live and work and travel to lots of places. Recently worked out that I've been to 50 countries.
Oh, wow.
And the last place was the Kingdom of Bhutan.
Oh, wow, okay.
So that was pretty special. It was my 50th. And
lovely.
then COVID hit, and it was, no more travel.
So what do you do when you go to all these countries? Is it like, it's for your career, right? It's for your job, yeah?
Sometimes I've taught in these countries. Often I've travelled. I've always been really interested in other cultures. I put it down to growing up in New Zealand pre-internet, basically. That's how old I am. And learning about the world through books in the library. And I had this great thirst to understand the world. And I had a godfather that lived in China, and he used to send me packages from China. And I'd open them, and there's these beautiful, interesting things. So it really ignited my imagination and my interest in the world.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So you're working with Yeronga on a global competency project. Can you tell us a bit about that?
Yes, I'm really excited. We're going to be working together on a one-year project. It's called the Global Citizenship Student Ambassador Project. And it's a one-year project where a group of students or ambassadors for your school will find a situation in your school or your school community, something that is an issue or maybe just a situation they want to improve for the better. And you'll be connecting in on Zoom with myself and several other schools, secondary schools, and these schools will be around the country. And you'll be learning some concepts and ideas, and we'll be exploring things together around design thinking, talking about the ideas of diversity, equity, justice, and inclusion, which I know you do lots of amazing work with here at your school. So we're really looking forward to learning from you guys as well. We'll be talking about the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. And then, as well as designing the project, you'll actually implement the project through community partnerships, which is a really strong piece of inclusive action work. So we're not just talking about, coming up with the ideas. We're actually going to be doing some real life learning where we set up some partnerships and then we go out into the world and we see what happens with those partnerships.
That sounds awesome.
Yeah.
So you're obviously very passionate about this kind of global competency piece. So what does global competency mean to you?
Oh, that's a big question. I think the thing about global competencies, sometimes we use the word global citizenship, is that traditionally people have understood this term as something that is learning about the world. And that's a really important part of global competency or citizenship. Understanding the world and how it works, the intercultural piece, understanding what other cultures are like and about, how do we interact respectfully and empathetically with others. But that's really only half of the story. The other piece that we're really starting to see lots of work in schools and with educators is taking action for social and environmental justice. So how do we make the world a better place for ourselves, for others, and for everyone together? And if we all did that, imagine what kind of world we might live in.
Right. So that's your end goal in your career and in your life, I could say, just to bring that kind of program to all the schools?
Yes. So I work across multiple schools with students, and we learn together about these concepts and share our ideas around this. Student voice and student agency is really important in this work because, of course, we're all equal, and so we want to learn from each other, and we all bring diverse perspectives. We all have different identities. The intersectionality of our identities is really important, and trying to navigate those and understand those is really important piece. When we kind of all come together in a big, beautiful jigsaw puzzle, we can create a beautiful picture together.
Yeah. So what are your thoughts on the progress I think we've made from when you started teaching to now on this global competency piece, on the way we acknowledge our intersectionality in our school and our diversity? How's that changed?
Oh, it's changed so much. I started teaching in New Zealand, and I've also taught in different countries around the world. In terms of global citizenship and global competency, traditionally it's very much been that learning about. And unfortunately, traditionally a lot of the texts that we learn about other countries and cultures were biased. We were exposed to ideas that were unbalanced, maybe even incorrect, were wrong. I think there's a saying that says history's written by the winners. So, there's a lot of voices that are being missing from our histories and pasts. So, that piece of, trying to understand our world from different perspectives has been something that's been developing, but also again just that kind of piece around how do we take action for social and environmental justice definitely wasn't there when I was growing up. And it wasn't that long ago, children were very much told to, sit still and be good and be quiet. Unfortunately, particularly if you're a girl.
I think what you're doing is really awesome. You're essentially raising leaders in our world, and that's very, global competent leaders in our world. So that's something that we definitely lack in our current political climate. So that's really awesome what you're doing. I feel like now would be a great time to learn a bit more about you, Lottie. Something a little personal.
Okay.
We can start off with a game of two truths and a lie. So would you like to shoot us with some two truths and a lie?
Okay, sure. Two truths and a lie. Okay, number one, I was a professional gymnast in my 20s.
Oh, wow.
Okay, number two, I was a professional fairy when I was at university.
Fairy? Oh, wow. Professional fairy. How does one become professional at being a fairy?
Oh, well, my part-time job, let's say.
Okay.
And number three, I did tap dancing for 10 years when I was little.
Oh, wow. Oh, this is so hard. I feel like being a professional fairy seems a little out there. Oh my god, if it's true.
It's true!
It's true! How do you become a professional fairy?
When I was at university, I was a professional fairy. I used to do birthday parties.
Wow.
I was one of those people that turned up with wings and a wand. So I did magic.
Oh wow.
I had a rabbit called a moonbeam.
You had a live rabbit?
Yes.
Oh wow, wow. Okay, that's crazy.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna guess tap dancing? No, gymnast is a lie?
Correct. I wish I was a professional gymnast in my 20s.
So you did tap dance. You did tap dance for 10 years.
When I was younger.
Oh
yes.
wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So fairy and tap dancing, do you think that tap dancing helped you become a fairy? Did you tap dance? That's so cool.
Yeah.
So you've been involved in the arts?
Very much, yeah. So my parents were professional artists, musicians. I grew up in the arts in a performing family.
That's so sweet.
And my speciality at school was drama and literacy.
Oh, so how did you segue into just taking this educational career?
Oh, yeah. So I guess when I started teaching abroad, that was a big part of my kind of awakening and understanding around kind of diversity and different cultures, and just an awareness that there was so much work to be done in this space, I think, too.
So you talked about teaching abroad, and that's what brings you that kind of revelation about diversity in Australia. Do you feel like Australia's curriculum system is lacking in educating students about diversity?
I think that all systems and all curriculums have opportunity for increased awareness and involvement of this work, absolutely. Yeah. And, everywhere there's people doing amazing work in this space, and everywhere there's, more work to be done.
Yeah.
These kind of really big ideas that are so interwoven into our social fabric, into society, they're not a point in time, they're not an ultimate truth, they're continually changing.
That's true, yes.
And so we need to keep learning, we need to keep being lifelong learners. I'm still learning, I'm learning every day in this work. and I'm constantly reading books. And so, it's kind of always evolving and changing. And so there's always work to be done, absolutely, everywhere.
So in your traveling and in the 50 years of 50 countries that you've traveled to...
I'm not that old.
Not 50 years of traveling. What is the most interesting thing you've learned about perhaps other schools' education system or just other countries' culture in general?
That's a really great question. I think in Thailand there's a t-shirt that says same but different. Which you might have seen if you've been to Thailand on holiday at any point.
Same but different.
Yeah. And I think that is, so true with this work, is that any education system that we go to, we see similarities, but we also see differences, and we can learn so much from, so many of these different kind of systems. Often our education systems are so strongly tied to our cultural identities.
Yes.
For example, in China, the way that the school works, the way the classrooms work is so deeply tied to Confucianism, essentially, at its roots. In the Kingdom of Bhutan, society has such a strong Buddhist identity that you really see this deeply in the school's work around sustainability in particular. It's one of the only countries in the world that's a carbon negative. They draw down more carbon than they're putting out, and there they are between two sort of giant countries. But that work is done as something that's very natural as caretakers of the planet, with sort of very kind of deeply Buddhist philosophies that underpin the work there. So I think just there's always something to be learned.
Do you think that having a Buddhist principle underneath our curriculum, that's a plus or a minus, do you think?
Oh, you ask tough questions. I think there's pluses and negatives, pros and cons to everything.
Yeah.
I try not to subscribe to ultimate truths. I believe that there's a lot of grey in the world, and that it depends on who you talk to, and that we've always got something to learn from other people. So if we can see that something is not ultimately right or wrong. I mean, there are things in the world that are, wrong. Yeah. But, I think that we can't necessarily say that, the education system should be like, this. We should have Buddhism, philosophy underpinning it, because, it's so complex, and it's so unique to that country and culture as well.
Now, I can't help but ask, for someone who's so well versed in all those different countries and our education system, do you think we would benefit from having a very unified and very standard approach to education all throughout the world?
Oh, what a great question. I actually think no, because I think that our education systems are reflective of society and our cultural and religious identities. I think, again, we have something to learn from all of these different systems, that we have this opportunity to kind of go and learn from other systems what's working, what's not working, and instead of kind of looking at these different systems with judgment and values based, we can look at them and say, what's interesting here, what's working here, and also reflect on our own context and situation as well.
So you definitely think that Australian curriculum could, adapt different areas of others' curriculum into our own kind of education?
I feel like there's always room for improvement everywhere. But you really asked hard questions. You really got me on the spot.
So what do you think would be the one big thing that we should change as an Australian curriculum?
I think the one thing that we should change in schools, I won't talk about curriculum itself, is that I think there's more space for individuality, for individual learning needs and interests and passions. I think that, student voice and agency, there's so much work in this space to be done. And for so many schools, it comes down to pedagogy, the way that we teach, right? So there's some pedagogies that are more supportive of this, but some, and this work is being done really well in some places, and somewhat well in other places. But yeah, I just think that we have so much to learn from young people that we need to also step aside a little bit as educators and as adults and as parents. I'm a parent, and listen to young people and learn from them and learn from their wisdoms as well.
That's really interesting. When you said personalization, it made me think of technology and how we're moving forward in terms of our education system and our incorporation of technology. Because at the end of the day, our advancement in technology allows us to be more personalized. You know, having personalized items. You know, soon enough we'll be personalizing our own organs, that kind of thing. So, what role do you think technology can play in terms of our education system and having that personalized kind of approach to teaching?
Yeah, well, I mean, technology is amazing. Look at, we've recently been through a global pandemic and we wouldn't have really got through it without, connecting to people, our family, our friends outside of our little bubbles. But also technology can be used, often it's used in a consuming sense, but right now technology is being used to produce something, right? So I think there's always opportunity for tech for good. AI or, whether we're using kind of digital storytelling, which is something we work with the students as well. Is that through audio? Is that through video? Is that through written, through blogging? All these different formats as we can actually use technology for good and we can decide what that good is. And of course, we can use it as a platform for voices. We have young people all over the world launching their businesses as children, as teenagers, selling things online, Etsy, all of these things, because technology is opening all these doors.
Yeah. What do you think about AI teachers?
What do I think about
AI teachers?
AI teachers? I don't know enough about it, I have to say.
Do you think AI could potentially replace teachers?
I don't think AI could ever replace human teachers because what technology is always going to lack is the human skills, the human social and emotional. And technology is augmenting many parts of different jobs and it's making our lives a lot easier. But at the end of the day, we all need human-to-human connection. And again, we saw this in the pandemic when we were shut off in our little homes. We wanted connection to other humans, even if that was on the other side of a screen. So how can we use technology to enable those connections? In education, it's amazing. You can go on YouTube and you can learn a whole set of skills, right? You can learn anything you want. But there's going to be an opportunity, there's going to be a time when you need to implement those skills. You'll probably need a mentor in the field. You'll probably need some help at some point. And you might not find that online through technology.
And that really links back to our whole piece about global competency. At the end of the day, it's about building connections with each other. And like the whole world essentially globally.
That's right. And I think with the pandemic, I mean, it was such a big piece. But we have never been so interconnected and interdependent as a planet than we are at the moment. If we look at global supply chains, if we look at the way that our countries interact with each other, we are so connected. The food we eat, the clothes we wear, migrations to countries, all these things we watch. Turn on Netflix and see the things that we're watching from all over the world. But we're also dependent on other countries and places. What is happening in one part of the world directly impacts us, and what we do in one part of the world directly impacts them. So once we start to understand this, we can really start to understand why it's important to be an engaged global citizen, and why it's so important that we are acting for sustainable and environmental justice in our local community, because that's what's right here in front of us. But also we have access to the whole world through technology.
Definitely. Cool, that is awesome. Do you have anything I want to add?
No, I think that this has been a really interesting conversation and you're a fantastic interviewer.
Thank you. So thank you so much, Lottie, for coming on to the podcast today. And that concludes our episode.